Hello, this is week 13 of Coding Bootcamp for Promineo Tech. This week we are starting Spring Boot. And as we're going to see here is the main class, Jeep Sales. And here is my package explorer showcasing all the files in it. We have the POM.xl file, which I can show real quick. It has all the information we need for this part of the program. Close that out. We also have all of our entity files: color, customer, engine, fuel type, Jeep model, option type, order request, and tire. We have our controller files, the interface file, Jeep Sales Controller, and then the class file that calls upon it, Jeep Sales default Jeep Sales Controller. We have the main class is Jeep Sales, and in the test file we have fetch Jeep request, and in our test resources we have the Jeep schema and data. Now let's look at the test case file. So you have our imports. We have a lot of imports for this because Spring Boot requires a little more than JUnit does. So we have our Spring Boot test annotation, which creates a web environment, which creates a random port. We have the after profiles, and then the SQL, which calls upon which keeps tracks of the schema files. It should be data, not schema. In any case, we have our test rest template, auto wire. We have our server port, and so I'll call it here, and we have the actual test. Let's test that Jeeps are returned when the valid model and trim are supplied. We have Jeep model, which calls from the Jeep model enum file, which is these. We have the string trim, which is going to be spore. We're calling for the model, rank order, and URI as a format. This is the code. This is the file we're going to call from: localhost Jeeps model trim, which is called server port for localhost, model, and trim. We have the response entity, that which check. And we'll get the HTTP method and have a status OK. And if it works, you can insert it. Now for inside the interface file, we also have our OpenAPI definitions. So we'll request a mapping to Jeeps, as we saw right here, localhost Jeeps. So every time Jeeps call, link to this as a request mapping, and get mapping for the actual list inside of the public interface file. With the OpenAPI definitions, have summary, the description, which showcases, return a list of Jeeps, return a list of Jeeps and optional trim, and the response codes and response. If it's a 200, it's okay, which will return that list of Jeeps return. It'll showcase what it is. If it's 400, then that means request parameters are invalid. 404 means it wasn't pulled. 500, an error has occurred. We have the parameters, model, and trim, and then we're going to actually run things. So we're going to run as Spring Boot, and the calls is upon port 800 if it's 50. So let's pull up Chrome document, and we are going to go to this. Enter that in, and here's a Swagger document. Showcase get, and has parameters and showcases the code, errors that occurred, and schema file showcases all the schema information, which you can see here, and you can check it from there.